Let's move away from this, shall we, Steve?
Yes, please.
Let's talk about Elon Musk, ready to bankroll, we understand, Nigel Farage and the Reform Party. Could be the biggest donation in political history. Let's remind ourselves of the man behind the donation, introduced here by the President of the United States.
His name is Elon Musk. He saved free speech. He created so many different great things. Where is he? Come on up here, Elon. He created the first major American car company in generations, and his rocket company is the only reason we can now send American astronauts into space.
There it is. What are you making of all of that, Steve? I mean, it's unconventional, this, and it wouldn't be quite such a talking point if Mr. Musk wasn't about to take up a fairly senior position within Trump's administration. That's the sort of game changer of the terms and conditions of this debate, I guess.
But even without that, though, and I'm not sure how major that role is, he's basically just going to be the time and motion studies guy, isn't he? He's basically
get rid of them, get rid of them, close that department, shut that office, and he might be right on quite a lot of it, by the way.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But I'm not. So I don't think that's the game changer for me. It's more about we should have a drive to stop ourselves being more like America all the time. We're already obese and can't spell. Why do we have to follow everything? Like, their politics is tainted by all the money. Basically, you can't become the president unless you've got some billionaires behind you. And if we end up with the same thing over here, you stand no chance of getting to become the party that leads this nation unless you've got some billionaires behind you. Then I guess we never, ever get a tax increase for a billionaire. So it will skew our policy in our politics in a way that I don't think I want. I like the way we do it. Yeah. You don't especially have the idea of having these international billionaires. Come on, I mean, it wasn't that long ago. We had to row in pubs about sovereignty and control and our parliament being sovereign. Stop letting American billionaires getting in control of stuff. It's a good point.
It's a good point. Yeah, why is that okay? You know, we don't want Brussels correctly anywhere near this sceptred isle, but a bloke that builds rockets and wants to stick a prong in your brain is absolutely fine.
Yeah, I mean, and also that clip of Donald Trump was great, wasn't it? He's the guy who's invented, long pause, so many things. That's why I didn't Google him in time. Yeah.
What's your favourite album? The greatest hits. You know, it's all there, isn't it? Let's move then to the Waspi story. This is another... I don't think this is really embarrassing for Labour. This is the classic case of be careful what you say in opposition. Because in opposition, you support everything, you condemn everything, you go for all the big hits, and you stand shoulder to shoulder with people who are apparently victims of governmental injustice. And then you become the government and you realise, it's a slightly different gig doing this. This is Labour accused of hypocrisy after abandoning a pledge to compensate women hit by the increase in state pension age. Just to remind ourselves of what Angela Rayner, of all people, it's our Ange, had to say about Labour's plans for the Waspi women before they were elected.
Well, the government failed the women who were born in the 1950s. They stole their pension, that contract, that agreement that they thought they had, and then accelerated it so that those women didn't have the chance to prepare for that. We said we'll right that injustice, and within the 5 years of the Labour government, we will compensate them for the money that they've lost. This is their money that they've had stolen off them, and it's completely unacceptable. And any government should act responsibly to these women who have looked after their children through that period. They're often looking after elderly relatives now, and they're a part of our society that have felt really unjust by the way they've been treated, and it's absolutely right that we deal with this issue.
They feel really unjust, apparently, Steve, but there she is, laying it on the line. We will compensate them. They've had money stolen, she said, which is an interesting way to define this one.
Yeah, I mean, Labour have now been accused of saying anything to get into power, and that really is the fail, isn't it? Because they didn't need to. Yeah. This was the one election when you didn't need to make promises. You didn't need to write checks that your backside can't cash, because all they needed to do on the run up to the election was go like, look at the state of these guys. And that they could have had that on posters, and they still would have won without all of these promises. So now, yeah, they've painted themselves into corners. And surely, the amount of money we're talking about wouldn't have been that difficult to just follow through on this one. Yeah. Pay the women. We can have the debate about whether you think it's thoroughly deserved or not, that maybe they were informed, but by lettering, do you presume that people read the letters, all of these things. But the amount of money we're talking about, I mean, there was a story last week about £6 billion spent on pointless research, like the eco effects of Star Wars and rubbish like that. Take some of that £6 billion, Stop doing pointless research. Pay a few of these things so you get some good headlines. This is what's really bothering me about this Labour government. They seem to think that they're so right, they don't need to worry about the unfortunate headlines.
Yeah,
you do. Because it's going to be a popularity contest again the next time there's an election.
And I think, Steve, on this particular point, I mean, Julia was talking about this earlier, and she's, you know, it was always, I mean, the people that should be compensated are all the men that had to retire later than women for some reason, despite women living longer. Which was always an extraordinary injustice. So that bit, you know, one for the lads, has never, ever been fought, that particular battle. I'm just turning this thing on its head. But the women, I mean, they weren't left empty-handed. They could carry on working. I mean, it's not as if you didn't have any money. You can carry on with your job. You just didn't have the right to retire with a state pension. And, yeah, it's not desirable when they make changes. I think there was one particular group within the group that were very badly affected for some very specific reasons. Maybe you could look at that one group. But the biggest story here is just, you know, we saw it with the, I've lost count of it. People keep sending me pictures of Labour MPs in opposition in the run-up to the election, you know, holding placards saying, we will fight for the winter fuel allowance. These are the people that went on to vote to abolish it in some areas. So there's that, and then there's this, and it just kind of feeds into a sort of an inept, woefully inexperienced, not particularly intelligent government. And I think we've seen that, and the clip we showed, I suppose, maybe highlights it more than anything else possibly could, because it had Angela Rayner in it.
Yeah, but also this ruins politics, because if we normalise, that's what they say on Twitter, like, let's not normalise the idea that a government or a party in opposition can make promises, but when they get in, go, no, well, we didn't know. Well, then that's it then. From now on, we never trust anyone in opposition. The Tories are starting to do it already. Robert Jenrick, most days, is coming out with a plan where you just think to yourself, yeah, you should have done that like 6 months ago, man. What are you doing? So now it's just a case of you're in opposition, say whatever you want, and at some point go, oh, what was I like? That's not the reality that I have to face.
Yeah.
Well, then we don't trust you anymore. And that's a bad state of affairs.
Absolutely right. Steve, stay with us. Steve N. Allen is with us, looking through the big stories of the day.